Well, my name is Jessica Castaneda. I work with the IDRC Consortium, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some marketing strategies that work with IDNR. I'm going to hide my camera here just so that you can kind of see the screen a little bit better and don't have me distracting on the other side. One of the things that we've realized is a lot of migrant programs, we're always wearing lots of different hats, and there's a lot of different things that we need to do to kind of get the word out about the program. And then we're trying to develop services and make sure that we're expanding who we talk to. And there's a lot of things that we do, but sometimes we might not actually be specifically thinking about networking or marketing with those that we network with. And so this presentation has really been designed to just kind of give you some strategies or some ideas that you can do really at any time during the year. You can kind of think to be deliberate and think of those things that can really ensure that people know about your program, and then also that that you can reach out to them in ways that maybe doesn't always require you to be asking something of them directly. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let me see if my slides will work here. So I want you to just think in your mind, HEP programs, MEP programs, do we even need to think about marketing? Maybe our programs are so good that everyone knows about us just because we've been there in an area and they've heard about the program and they've had, lots and lots of people that have been impacted. But a lot of the times you're starting in a new area. There are, a lot of turnover in families. And so people that were there 5 years ago that you helped, it may be a whole new population. So you continually have to kind of reach out and figure out how to market to those that you work with. And then there's the question of, look, I'm already busy. Why can't I just do what I've always done? And so if you feel like you've completely covered all your areas and you really have reached everything possible, we still challenge you to try marketing and see if it reaches other people that you didn't even know were there. But these days with the pandemic, we feel like everything has really changed. Some of the things we used to do, you can't do now. Some of the things that work now are things that we never tried in the past. And so marketing is it's a strategy done by businesses all over the world. And Migrant Ed should not be any different. We should specifically have some deliberate ideas of how we're wanting to market to those we serve with. And then there's the comments, I'm always busy with what I have to do. I don't want to have to worry about this. We do believe that this will make your job a little bit easier. And so we want to give you some tips and ideas of what could happen. So we've seen a lot of changes over the last year. We know with COVID, a lot of us weren't able to travel. Maybe some of us are now starting to be able to travel. Sometimes people would say, we think our numbers are decreasing because families aren't moving as much, but we're not sure. Maybe we can't back that up with data. That's just our impression. We're seeing workers are nervous and not everybody wants to just answer their phones, especially if they're not sure who you are. Maybe the pandemic has caused that we're not able to cover as much, or we're not going to the farms, or when we do show up at the farms don't want us to talk to their workers. Weather, seasons are changing a little bit. In some areas, the number of workers that we're trying to find are actually less. And maybe we don't have the partnerships that we need. Maybe we used to, or maybe we never have, or maybe the pandemic has just made it a lot harder for us to be able to do that. So we are seeing that states are doing all sorts of new initiatives, and they have been throughout the pandemic. And some of the comments we've received about are how people are using social media and really trying to use it to reach deeper and get more referrals. Other programs have started newsletters where they send information to farmers and businesses just kind of sporadically, not really asking them for anything, but more informing them of the services that are provided. Another state says we're providing a really high quality virtual tutoring program that parents can call in about questions they have, and they share this with others. And so it's really, kind of getting the word out about the program. Other ones are using the radio. They put small ads in the program, about the program, or billboards. I've seen billboards put up in towns where it would have specific information that would be helpful in the area of town that migrant families might live or work. And they're getting calls from that. Some have been really deliberate about changing their websites. Sometimes our websites stay the same for years and years. So it's not something that people will come back to get information from continually or anything. So they've tried to rebrand that and make it an information source so that people will come back and they can kind of post what's happening. And then they can share it with others on social media and then get referrals from that. Another state's really thinking about how to redo all their brochures. I feel like a lot of times it's such red tape to get a new brochure that we use the same brochure for 4 years, and The brochure is not tailored to who we're giving it to. It's really tailored to just the migrant family. It may not be for the farmer. It may not be for community partners. So being strategic about making sure the information that we send out is really relevant to those that we need. That's really important. Another one, so we just made specific goals to get out of our comfort zone, to get out and talk to all of our farmers, all of our agribusiness, make sure they know what we're doing, try to develop a plan with each one of them and find out what they could really offer that would be helpful to those that they're sharing. So I guess the big question is, are you willing to try new things? Or do you feel like you're kind of, look, I'm done. I've already, I've done everything that I possibly can do. So in this presentation, we really want you to put on the hat as if your new job was to market for migrant ed. And so we're going to talk about some of the actual terms and things that they use in marketing, some ideas that they use that really kind of guide marketing principles that most of us may not be thinking of, or some of us might naturally be doing without even realizing it. So why is marketing so important? And if it is, why do we not focus that much on it in MEP? So it says here, marketing is important because it allows agencies to maintain long-lasting and ever-present relationships with their audience. All of us are marketed to all the time. Our kids know certain brands and things specifically because it's targeted directly to them. So these things are not, like it says here, it's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing strategy that helps projects flourish. Whatever kind of project it is, they're thinking about, how can I market to the public? How can I work sometimes with the Lego camp in the summer with a center in Tennessee that has this, that works with people from all over the state. And they'll say, well, if we're going to do this Lego camp, how can we market it? Who do we need to, what can we do? And so they have this whole group of people whose job is specifically to try to push this information out and, see who's interested. So we may not have the luxury of having many people do this, but it needs to be in the back of our head and it needs to kind of guide what we're doing. So if you were in the marketing world, these are some pillars to success, things that they would say was important. First of all, understand your client DNA. So our clients would be migrant families. It would be youth. It also could be the farms and agribusiness and schools that we work with. So who is our market and what are their needs? So in each one of those groups, whether it's migrant families or farmers or schools, their needs are totally different. And the way that we reach out to them should be different. So we should do our research. We should know those needs. We should also try to work to understand their perceptions and opinions. And one of the ways that they do it with marketing a lot of times is to set up a focus group. So they bring in several people or several groups that represent this focus group area. So maybe business owners or farmers or migrant families. And they ask them, their impressions of different things that they're specifically wanting to push out in their marketing campaign. And so we may not feel that that's exactly appropriate, but you could be mindful when you have some materials and you're wanting to market to farmers or to a specific demographic, to be able to reach out to some of those that you work really closely with and say, hey, what do you think of this? Could I improve this? And get their thoughts. So we know that social media is something that is used all over the world, and it is used in a lot of different forms in a lot of different ways. And sometimes our social media may just go as far as Facebook. We may be doing tweets, we may be using WhatsApp, but one of the things we want to do is make sure that programs are really looking at the different types of platforms, figuring out which ones they really should explore and which ones they've used in the past and which ones have worked well. Most of us in the last year have gotten really familiar with using tools like Zoom or Google Meet or things just to be able to reach out. And so you can also build upon that knowledge that you have and make sure that you're checking out these different resources and seeing if it's a good fit in your program. So one of the things, like, for example, with Facebook, you may be really comfortable with Facebook, but you may not know how you can use it to market other than just posting. But in this presentation, there's a link that specifically says, how you can use Facebook for local businesses. I used to be over an art center a while ago, and one of the things that we did was provide classes, and we actually, through all the proceeds from these classes, went to actually help support some scholarship programs for migrant students, and we used it for some program funding. But one of the things we realized is we could set up a marketing campaign, and we could make sure that our posts were going to the people that we wanted in a specific area. So maybe we had an art class that we wanted one particular demographic to make sure that it showed up as an ad on their Facebook. If we paid $30 or so, we could get that so that it could be, we'd say, okay, I want them to, these are my custom audiences that I'm looking for. this is the area that I'm looking for, and this is the behaviors or interests that they might have. And so then I could actually target a whole new group of people that didn't even know who we were through this particular tool. So it says here, why use social media? There are more than 3 billion users across using social networks across the globe. So people are using it. So you look at how many people are using the internet, how many of them are active social media users, how many of them have used their phones, how many of them use their social media on their phones. So it's somewhere people are. And like it says here, 60% of Instagram users say they discover new products through Instagram. So Instagram, you can say, well, exactly, how exactly could I use that with my program? I've seen that things evolve really fast. And so like with Instagram, they say it's like a visual magazine. Like we used to, order magazines and look at the magazines that make sure that your Instagram kind of tells the story of your program. And it's not just 50 million pictures of your face, but it's, showing different moments that the Migrant Ed program is helping. And so when someone opens up the Tennessee, or I'm just making this up, just, my Facebook page, if this was my job for the migrant program, that they could really get a quick idea of what we're all about visually by the things that I put on our Instagram page. So there is there is a group that I really think does a really good job with this. I'm going to see if I can share my screen and see if I can get these guys open. Give me just a second. See, I can't do too many things at one time. So there is, let me share this. Moving over to my screen. There is a group that I think does this really well. They actually help run the migrant program in Tennessee, but it's called Conexión Americas. And when you get to their website, they do a great job with both their web presence and their Facebook presence and their social media. So you get right there and you can decide when they get to their website, do you want English or Spanish? We'll just go with English. And they change their information so often. It's really interesting to see the information that they have, but they have a really good Facebook presence. And so when you go here, what I like to do is pay attention to how many people are actually, let me make sure that you're seeing my screen. Yeah. How many people are actually using this? And so there's 9,000 followers that, 10,000 people that follow this. So if you're a Migrant Ed page, you make a Facebook page and it only has like 4 followers and it doesn't increase, and you're not finding ways to really, increase that, you're not marketing to very many people. So you want to be you really want to be proactive at that. And these guys are really good about changing all sorts of really helpful information that you can kind of see, and they do a great job with it. And so it's just, sometimes we say, hey, we want you to, do this. I think this is a group that really does it well. And it's kind of interesting to follow kind of some of the things that they do. So again, there are a million different companies and different groups that do things well, but that's just one example of somebody who's really familiar with Migrant Ed and does the Migrant Ed program, and then really has this really robust social media presence. And so I would suggest that you learn from those that are doing things well. So and when you think about creating your own, what are you doing to look out for the best interests of those that you serve? To really connect with your clients, you have to show the human side of your brand or your program. And this example that I just shared, I think they do a really good job of that. So it says here, why use social media, which we talked about a little bit a couple slides ago. But one of the things that they say is to establish your program as a thought leader. You think, what does that mean? So if you take a look at this number, and these are some older numbers of just how many more people started using Instagram from January 13 in 2013 to 2018, you can see that it's increased. And I'm sure the numbers today would show that it's increased even more. But there's this idea that you are a go-to source for information on topics related to your niche. So the area that you work in, that you really know that you've got good information, that people will come back, that your content is dynamic, it changes, it's not always just the same, but that people might want to know what you think about different issues and what's happening. So this buzz phrase of thought leadership in marketing basically means it's a great way, it's a process, or it's a thing that you're wanting to have happen so that you really can build trust with your clients. So it's another reason why to use social media. It says it's a great way to drive traffic to your website. So if you're making sure that your website changes and you've got really helpful information, social media is a great way to kind of link it over and say, hey, check this out, and bring it. You can also generate leads and referrals. but you need to have a clear marketing plan of how you will use that to generate referrals or share program information. So just because you post something doesn't mean anything will happen, but are you being deliberate? Are you really thinking about what's happening and what's going on? And so you can see that here we used to put a lot of things in the newspaper, when you had a position that was open or you wanted to sell something. And now you can see that, Facebook is really one of those things that the ads and, where people are putting stuff in is turning into Facebook as opposed to just the printed materials that we used to use in the past. Let me double check and make sure you can see my screen. So it says, let me check that again. It looks like, yes, let me make sure I'm giving you the right one. Actually, I think for some reason I have been, hopefully I have not just lost you on this slide. So the next one was this, as far as establishing your program as a thought leader, making sure that, you can kind of see users and where they've come, why you want to use social media to really generate those leads, to have that clear marketing plan. And then you want to make sure that you know what your population is using. So find out what they're using and then learn everything you can about how to use it. So LinkedIn, for example, is a way that a lot of businesses can reach out to other businesses. So maybe some of your agribusiness professionals are on there and from human resources, and that's a great way to reach out to them. Maybe not the best way to reach out to farmers, but maybe some of them are on there. So you kind of can learn a little bit more about how that works. So social media has unequivocally become an essential element to business strategy. And so interesting when they start looking at different demographics, they'll say, okay, in general, Hispanics love social media. Now we may be completely just generalizing here, but it says that engaging the 59 million Hispanics who live in the US, 18% of the total population, they are heavy social media users. Now I realize that migrant ed families can be of all different backgrounds and come from all over, but we do work with a lot of Hispanic families. And so you can kind of see that learning about what people are using is really helpful. And so one of the things that came out was really interesting about this particular article. Forbes came out and said that that US Hispanics spend nearly 66% more time per week watching videos on their smartphones compared to the total market. So if the population that you work with is you really doing a lot of work, spend a lot of time around videos, why not create some videos? Why not use that? Maybe you have some short YouTube videos that you have for parents, but reach out with whatever it is that they're using. Another thing it says, we really need to do our homework. We need to know what they're using. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can reach out to families and a lot of ways that people are using things. And so you just want to kind of learn about those. And so just an example of some marketing that I used to use years ago when I first started in Tennessee, we didn't have a lot of resources. And so we would use the 1-800 number from Escort as a way to kind of post information. Like we had books that we created that we would give them if they qualified, as well as CDs, and they really, really liked them. But we would post this little simple flyer. And then if we sent it to one of our partners, we would say, hey, could you post this with a letter that kind of explained what we were about? It worked really, really, really well. And we did this for a good amount of time. And it was very, very helpful. And so, but this may not be the best way to do things now. We might still need our little laminated flyer and put it somewhere, on a post outside of a laundromat, or there may be a way better, way to kind of use some of these other tools that we've been talking about. So going back to those pillars of successful marketing, it says one of the things you need to do is craft your unique message. Perception is everything. Your message should paint a picture of your credibility. So what are you doing to make a difference? What are you about? It needs to resonate with your audience. It needs to really establish the purpose of why you're trying to reach out to them. It needs to show that you're professional and trustworthy, and that they really should know who you are before you even show up. So do they recognize your logo? Do they recognize what your program's about? Or do you show up and they're like, I've never heard of this program? If they say that, which was common many times when I was working in Tennessee, we think we have not really gotten into this area very well at all. They have never heard of us. So what could we do to better get that information out? So here's some examples of some kind of different kinds of flyers that we had. One of the things we realized is we made a community partner flyer, and it was just to really showcase all of these different things that we could offer. So when we showed up and asked for referrals or partner agencies that we might be able to work with, they would kind of be able to see in a glance what we were all about, and I didn't have to spend a ton of time explaining. And then when I left, it would still give them a whole bunch more information. And so I feel like that, you leave a flyer and that doesn't always mean something's going to happen. It says here on what they call the touch process, on average, it takes 7 to 9 touches to reach your target audience. This means you need to land your message in front of your audience at least that many times before they're likely to notice you. And you must reinforce your message with each and every one of those touches. So you're not literally touching them, but you're reaching out in different ways. And so that could be mailings, flyers, brochures, websites, telephone calls, visits, social media posts, word of mouth. We are notorious, I think, in the migrant program to show up, just the way that we do things. We show up, the farmer, we ask, if we can talk to the workers, they say no. And then we're like, farmer doesn't want to work with us. And then we kind of move on. We make a note, maybe this guy's, not very easy. But did we do any pre-work? Did we mail them a brochure or a flyer or information about our program before we showed up? And maybe someone had saw it, you could refer to that. Did we do a phone call first? And maybe that's not helpful. Maybe the face-to-face is the best thing we need. But have we tried some of these other things? So it says typically your touches will come in the form of media, press, networking, social media, marketing materials, your website, email marketing, or direct mail. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. And you could actually even set up this calendar to say, hey, I'm going to reach out to all the farmers. And the first thing I'm going to do is send out an informational mailing about what we do. Just some successful programs. Maybe we get permission from one of our kids to share it, say, hey, this is a successful student that went through our program. We just send it out. We don't ask them for anything. And then maybe we do another one that's our brochure. And maybe another one of, hey, do you realize your workers could qualify for this or this or this? So the thought is, did we have some sort of thought in this process to really try to figure out how to reach it? And then if something works, did we take note of that and try to see if we can replicate that? So I mentioned that I was in charge of an art center many years ago, I think it was in 2013. And one of the things that we did was offer these classes to teachers about STEM and STEAM and all of these different hands-on activities that they could do. And we had curriculum that we created, and they would come and participate in these programs. And so we would we would market to all of the school districts across the state of Tennessee. And something interesting happened as we would send out flyers and information. It seemed like the first time we sent something out, we'd get maybe a little bit of interest, and somebody would email and ask. The second time we'd get a little bit more, but something happened on the third time. The third time is when we usually got a lot of people registered. And so we realized that, you might get discouraged and send that first one out and just get 1 or 2 bites of people that are interested. And then you don't realize that, hey, if I just change it a little bit, change the pictures of the flyer or send it, people would say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Let me go ahead. And by the third time, that was when we pretty much filled up most of our spots. So this idea of building your brand, what kind of feeling would you like to evoke in your target audience when they come across your logo, they browse your website, or read through your marketing materials? Do you want them to really get that sense that you really care that their kids do well in school and you're really there to help with that? Or, what do you want to have happen? And so it says here, take 7-Up, for example. Studies have shown that when adding 15% more green to the soft drinks label, taste testers report that it has more lime flavor than lemon flavor, even though the drink itself was left untouched. So you think, okay, the drink is the same. What is happening? Our perception, this marketing that 7-Up is doing to us, is changing the way that we're thinking. So in marketing, they ask you to really set those goals beforehand, think about what you want to do, decide what is success. Is success getting more referrals? Is success making it so that when you show up at the door of someone, they already know about the migrant program? What is your goal? What do you want to do? And then what do you have to do to get there? Do you need more partners? Do you need to visit more places? Do you need to be more deliberate in those things that you send out before you visit? What does that look like? So it says, whatever method of marketing you're using today, like my little flyer that I used to use, sooner or later it will stop working. So you may not know why it stopped working, but the idea is in marketing, you're going to have to keep changing, evolving, and trying new approaches, offerings, and strategies. So I want to show a little video here. Let's see if I can get it to work. Hold on just a second. Let me make sure that as I share the video, you can hear the audio. I'm going to share this, expand it.
First glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created for the first time in all history a garden of pure ideology where each worker may bloom, secure one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Okay, so let me make sure I share back where we were. Sure, I share the right slide. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting little video that you guys just saw. So this is Apple. Of course, we know Apple is one of the best marketers that are out there. Well, all of our kids know about Apple products. And it says this ad fired on all cylinders for its pop culture relevance, intelligence, originality, and daring. Surprisingly, the marketing team at Apple originally dismissed the ad, thinking it would be one of the least effective commercials ever tested. They couldn't have been more wrong. The day after it aired, customers flooded electronics stores going to purchase $155 million worth of Macintosh computers 3 months after the ad debuted, making it a truly memorable commercial. This is not to mention this single ad aired only one time, and it encouraged every Super Bowl advertisement that followed. So kind of interesting that you think, sometimes you may think that something doesn't work, but then it winds up working really, really well. One of the things that they tell you to think about is your packaging. So packaging is the way that your resources, of course, of your services appear from the outside, but packaging also refers to your people, how they dress, how they groom, refers to your program offices, your brochures, your correspondence, and every single visual element about your company. So do you have, a brand? Do your flyers have certain colors? Do you have something that they associate with you? Everything counts, everything helps or hurts, everything about affects your customer's confidence about dealing with you. So maybe they go to our offices and it's really messy and disorganized, and then we're trying to show them, how good we are, but they have gotten a different impression by kind of showing up and seeing where we work. So it used to be kind of one of the ultimate compliments that you would say, that someone would say, hey, you look like you're, somebody from IBM. It says when IBM started under the guidance of Thomas J. Watson Sr., he very early concluded that 99% of the visual contact a customer would have would be with his representative. So he wanted to make sure that they had very high level of confidence and credibility. And he therefore said, hey, there's got to be some standards, some dress and grooming standards that you have to follow. And he had this inflexible set of rules. This is what it had to follow. So as a result, every salesperson was required to look like a professional in every aspect. So that's dark suits, dark ties, white shirts, conservative hairstyles, their shine shoes, clean fingernails, everything that gave them this idea of professionalism and competence. And so their highest compliment was, you look like someone from IBM. Now, of course, we don't need to look like we're from IBM as we go out in the fields and talk with families, but we do need to be strategic. We don't need to show up with sandals. One time I went working with one lady and she said, oh, I can't go with you because I wear sandals today. And it's like, okay, you knew where we were going. Why are you wearing sandals? Same time I show up with inappropriate footwear and the farm. I'm trying to tell the farmer I want to go talk to the workers. And he's saying, no, I mean, it's a hazard for me to have you dress like that. Maybe, there's certain things that we need to be thinking about, certain, the impressions that we need to be giving people. And it needs to be a deliberate thought of how we're doing this. So you should develop the habit of thinking continually about how you are positioned in the hearts and minds of your customers. How do people think and talk about you when you're not present? How do people think and talk about your company? What positioning do you have in the market? Do they describe you by certain things? So really very, very interesting. Coke, let me see if I can.
Hey, I'm Russ Rafine.
Let me see if I can get this to share this new one that I want to show you. So we know that Coke is,
And if you're a coach, consultant, expert, author, or speaker, I have just one question. Hi, and welcome to.
Okay, so we know that Coke is just an absolute powerhouse at using marketing. And so I want to show a little bit of this video. It's a really, really good video about how Coke does its marketing. And so I'll share part of this if you just want to, hopefully you can hear it good and just kind of listen to what they're sharing, what they're talking about.
Thought Catalyst. I'm Charles Painter, and today we're going to be talking about the marketing campaigns of the Coca-Cola Company. Coca-Cola was first invented within an Atlanta-based pharmacy by Dr. John Pemberton in May 1886. Initially sold at local soda fountain counters, Growing demand and the idea of making the beverage portable led to bottling the sparkling drink. In its first year, Pemberton sold just 9 glasses of Coca-Cola a day for 5 cents a glass. Since then, the company has expanded ever so slightly, currently selling its products at an estimated rate of more than 1.9 billion servings a day. That's the equivalent, every day, to almost 1 in 4 people buying something from Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola Company is one of the most recognized companies in the world, and it's certainly the world's biggest drink company. They control more than half the global market in carbonated soft drinks, as well as a substantial chunk of the somewhat larger non-carbonated segment. It owns 4 of the world's 5 biggest selling soft drinks, with Coca-Cola being the world's best known and most valuable non-technology brand. Within its portfolio, the company holds more than 500 brands, including Fanta, Sprite, and Relentless. Within these, they produce over 3,500 varied products, spanning from sodas to bottled water to iced teas and coffees. Despite an estimated 94% of the world's population recognizing the red and white Coca-Cola logo, nearly 10% of their revenue, $41 billion, was spent on advertising and marketing campaigns last year. This astronomical $4 billion was spent on a diverse range of campaign tactics across multiple geographic regions. As with many things in the world, ironically, the companies that are the most well recognized possessed the highest budget for their advertising and public image. Luckily, this hefty budget allows Coke to experiment and get creative with their marketing, providing the opportunity to remind us why they're as successful as they are. Now, what is the Coca-Cola brand built upon? Well, it's this secret: training our brains to associate the brand with a good feeling, be that happiness, relaxation, friends, love, anything, rather than the soda itself that makes them good at what they do. Now, we're going to go through a few examples here. First of all, let's have a look at the 2015 Christmas advert. For many, the arrival of the iconic "Holidays Are Coming" Coca-Cola truck, it's a highlight of the period, building excitement for Christmas. The ad might be 21 years old, but interest in it shows little sign of diminishing as it brings out everyone's nostalgic side. The focus of last year's A Coke for Christmas ad follows a young boy who aims to spread the joy through giving Coca-Cola to those who are making Christmas a reality, including a dad, a shop assistant, and Santa Claus himself. Now, the important aspects of the advert is that it targets the whole family. The ability to provide the experience for the entire family is essential. The commercial itself closely follows Coke's primary principles in their advertising. Rather than attempting to sell a drink, Coke focuses on selling an abstract positive concept, such as happiness, family, and sharing. As we can see, Coke have become experts at selling these non-concrete conceptions. This year's video, like many before it, remains true to their core values that they use in their marketing campaigns year-round. Along with this, Coke modified their traditional formula for advertising, adopting a more multi-channel approach. Traditionally, video, print, and physical advertising were the focal point of Coke's festive commercials. However, this year saw the addition of Coke TV and social media via hashtags and a Coke emoji. This was an attempt to broaden their influential radius. Now, the next example we're going to look at is called Share a Can. Now, Coke's Share Happiness campaign has been one of the key pillars of their advertising machine. This involved multiple previous strategies, such as the Coke Hug Me machine and the hugely successful debranding tactic, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. However, the Coca-Cola Sharing Can may have successfully created the most literal rendition of sharing a Coke. The regular-looking can of Coke can be twisted to become 2 mini cans, allowing probably one of the easiest methods for sharing a Coke on the move. As part of the pilot project, Coke distributed its sharing can to thirsty Singaporeans and documented their surprised reactions. The documentary of this surprised happiness involved the team accompanying the distributors, following them to areas where they knew there would be heavy traffic, and filmed people's authentic reactions. This documentation provided Coke with video evidence of the purest possible form of happiness, showing how people would react and the kind of power it has. Now, finally, we got on to debranding. As mentioned earlier, arguably the most successful Share Happiness campaign would be the debranding tactic. Marketing Director Lucy Austin and her team within Coca-Cola's South Pacific branch were delivered a 151-word creative brief that gave them free rein to deliver a truly disruptive idea that would make headlines and capture the country's attention. The resulting campaign, known internally as Project Connect, based on its ambition to both strengthen the brand's bond with Australia's young adults and inspire shared moments of happiness with the real and virtual worlds, it became known as Share a Coke. The primary concept behind this was the swapping out of Coke branding on bottles and cans in favour of 150 of the most popular names in Australia, allowing Coke to reach 42% of the population. This campaign was released and almost immediately saw a positive reaction, with unaffiliated celebrities buying bottles and social media conversation and media coverage blowing up as a result. Within that summer, Coke sold more than 250 million named bottles and cans in a nation of just under 23 million people. This overwhelming positive result led to the expansion of the campaign across the world, reaching more than 70 countries. As the campaign spread across the globe, over 17,000 names were used, including generic nicknames and titles such as Mom and Dad and Mate.
So most of us, without even realizing it, have been completely marketed to by Coke. And I found their tactics really interesting. So if you want to watch the whole video, there's a lot more information in there, but it's really, really kind of sums up some of these things that we're trying to talk about the, the branding and the thought, the touches and all of this. And it says in the famous book by Al Reese and Jack Trout called Positioning, this is specifically for marketers, the authors point out that how you're seen and thought about by your customers, families, or youth is a critical determinant of your success. So do they believe that your program is something that's really going to help them out? So this idea of attribution theory says that most customers think of you in single terms, of, hey, that's a really good program, or, that's quality, that's service, like it talks about Mercedes-Benz here, quality engineering is, one of their buzzwords that they're always trying to get people to, really associate with them. It says in every case, how deeply entrenched is that attribute, that if you want them to really trust you, what are you doing in your marketing to really help show that? And then what do you do when you're with them? All of those kind of things. But they believe that what they think of you determines how readily they'll answer you, share your information with others, and provide referrals. So we really need to develop the habit of thinking about how you can improve that positioning. Begin by thinking of the kind of positioning that you'd like to have. What kind of impressions would you like to make on those minds of your partners, the families, the agribusinesses, everybody that you work with? And then what do you need to do in your interactions to make sure that they really see the program in that way? So there's an interesting thought that says, the people. A lot of times the recruiter is the first person that migrant families see. The people that you have working, it says it's amazing how many people will work extremely hard to think through every element of the marketing strategy and getting the word out to the public and doing all these different works. But then it says your ability to select, recruit, hire, and retain the proper people with the skills and abilities to do the job that you need to have done is probably more important than everything else put together. So your people really are the heart of, we know that, but then you think how making sure that you have the right people doing the right jobs. So maybe the idea of marketing completely overwhelms you, but somebody in your office is really good at it. And somebody already naturally is good with all social media. So maybe you have them assist with this. So it says in his best-selling book, Good to Great, Jim Collins discovered that the most important factor applied by the best companies was they got all the right people on the bus and the wrong people off. And once they got them on the bus, they put them in the right seats in the bus, so with the right jobs. So if you're responsible for hiring, you really got to develop the habit of thinking in terms of exactly what's going to happen and which tasks people are going to need to be, and make sure that you've got the best people possible in those areas. So there's also this idea of, most of us love, the commercials during the Super Bowl, and they're really short, but they have this idea of, with marketing, your 30-second commercial thinking. And I think this is relevant when you're trying to sell the program and you're standing in front of somebody and you have just a few seconds to really get them to trust you or to get you to go away. It says some of the things that they think about in marketing is make sure you capture your audience attention. It says think about one of your favorite commercials. What part of the commercial stays with you? What technique did the advertiser use to draw you in? Did they use humor, aesthetics, emotion, surprise, or something? And then think about how you can incorporate that technique into your next important conversation. Make sure that you have a clear message. You consider the key messages that you want people to get before you even get there. You've thought this out. What do you want to convey? How do you want to connect with them? Are you going to frame your message? What questions? And then how might you deliver your message to ensure that your audience walks away with the understanding that you want them to have? I know that I've explained the program to a migrant family and I've got done and they've said, no, ¿qué es eso? Or why is this? And I think, didn't I explain it? But I guess I didn't explain it to them in a way that, was good enough. So make sure that we're ready to tailor it to the different audiences. And so I do have, for your viewing pleasure later on, I have some 30-second commercial thinking, some ideas of, some of the best, some of the most recent Super Bowl commercials from 2000, I guess. So there are 6 P's, they call them the 6 P's of marketing. One is our product. So if recruiters are running around trying to sign migrant families up and then your program doesn't do good quality services, then you're really just, it's not going to be helpful. Your price, thank goodness, is free. Promotion, how are you getting the word out? Do you have that consistent message? Does your community know about the program? The place, where are you really targeting your audience? What's your process? Have you thought out the process of how you're going to reach out, everything all the way from your delivering your services? Does it make sense? Is it focused on those that you really need to focus on? And then how this thing called physical evidence, how do you explain to your customer what they'll receive or what they'll be able to participate in? And does it seem like something that those that you're reaching out to will be interested in? And then they return back to these 4 pillars. You need to know, define, you need to know what your customers, clients, or your eligible families and youth like and what your services can do for them. You need to be able to identify ways to target them based on their behavior and habits. You need to be able to devise strategies to find them. Sorry, I'm talking too much. And you need to be able to keep up with your eligible families, what their needs are, and how you can use that. And so the real key here is to not lose your voice, but to try something new. We can't just continually do the same old things. Make sure that we're doing things that are different and then see the results of those. So hopefully we've given you some ideas today that will give you some strategies or things that you can think about, make sure that you're doing. And we really believe that marketing is an essential part of IDNR, essential part of effective migrant programs. We just really have to think about, the best way to do that. And hopefully these ideas have given you somewhere to start. Thank you.